glad you are here for 5 minutes. That's all really I need. If I get 5 minutes with you, you have a sense that things are okay. David Toulis is on guard. He's watching things. The investigative reporter for Nougat Radio. When I hear that, that's what I am. I just kind of laugh because I'm not really an investigative reporter. What I do is I just look at the law and see the friction, if you will, between law and practice. It is a widespread problem. Americans are a lawless people. We have statutes galore, and we have sovereign individuals who occupy seats of power and take employment with various governments, and they do what they want. And so that's why they act as if they were sovereigns. I had a discussion yesterday with the Gnome of Strawberry Plains about a website that he wanted me to look at. He said he thought a lot of what was on that about our dilemma as a people was true. And I said, well, but it talks about, as I scanned it over, it talks about the sovereign people of the country delegating authority to the government. I said, well, that really isn't true. And if it's a patriotic website, well, no doubt there are people who think, talk about the sovereign individual problem. Well, no man is sovereign. No country is sovereign. God alone is sovereign. And when I read in American jurisprudence, for example, the encyclopedia or Black's Law Dictionary, or even Tennessee jurisprudence, the encyclopedia for Tennessee law, and I come across that word about the state, I just cringe because it is a theft. It is a theft from God. All power is delegated, all of it, even that of a people that create a government. It is a delegated power, and it is and power always has to reflect justice, right? All power, as exercised by men, has to reflect a standard apart from any one man. And I would say that position is claimed by God. This is David Toulis, and we are 92.7 arguing for local economy and free market. And I want to get to what an agnostic or even an atheist. Ben Shapiro, I was watching this morning, debating an atheist. What this person could say to the conservative, Republican conservative Christian person here in the Chattanooga area, in Helena County, and places beyond, throwing at his face his own law. But I want you just to make note of something on your calendar. On the 23rd of June, that's just a few days out, 23rd of June, and the 24th, Saturday and Sunday, we are going to be part of the 36th annual Chattanooga Waterfront Triathlon. That's, again, a 2-day event. We'll be broadcasting at the Expo downtown both days. It's going to be a huge, huge event, and our Sam Jordan will be there on a bicycle on the day of the race, broadcasting from a bike. And we hope to be there with our flashy Hummer, the yellow Hummer that I traverse the area in. So that's the 36th annual Chattanooga Waterfront Triathlon, and I urge you, my listener, to be part of that, take part in it. As a classical liberal, I'm often at odds with people with whom I identify, right? And those would be conservatives, homeschool types, libertarians, free market types, Christian people. But I think a lot of them are mistaken, and I think that the left probably has for now anyway. The leftists are pragmatists, so just as conservatives are, and so you could say the progressive side, for the moment anyway, as it masks its real intentions, has in its outward argument the right one, and that is for lenity and grace for newcomers, non-criminal, civilian, non-combatants, right? Non-combatants who have crossed this line in the sand. Now, the line in the sand is one that that President Trump administration wants to use as the anchor point for a wall, right? But you can't analogize the border of a country to private property, right? Your private property is yours, and you can keep people off of it and require certain conditions be met before they come in either onto your land or into your house, right? But a nation state doesn't have that. It doesn't own the land, right? You have the idea, or you can have the idea of national government owning having a wall and keeping people out only if you presuppose something else, which is certainly not true and not not right, and that would be that the state, the national state, owns the land, right? If the United States government, the incorporated body, owns all that desert area and all the scrub and the hills and the mountains, and that the line that runs down the Rio Grande, if it owns all the land on this side of the line, well, then you can say, well, it has every business keeping people out, but it doesn't, right? All the border demarcates is the end of legal authority. That's all that a border is. It doesn't mean that there has to be a wall. It doesn't mean that there have to be gun emplacements, minefields, claymore positions, concertina wire, walls, armed guards, drones, helicopters, protecting us from working families from Mexico. But that's, if you have that presupposition, you've already presupposed the total state, right? If you think that that's what the border is all about, and you're for that, you, my conservative Christian, self-identifying Christian listener, you are a totalitarian. Where is your argument for grace? Where is your argument from the scripture that says there is to be one law in your country, as it was required for the Israelites? One law in your country. The number is 800-8949. Do call me. Maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe I have it wrong. And I'm not wrong about the 36th annual Chattanooga Waterfront Triathlon, which will be on the 23rd and 24th. I'm not wrong about that, and I hope you're there. But I might be wrong about strangers and aliens. And for example, one law shall be for the native born and for the stranger who shall be among you. In other words, there can't be two laws where if you're an alien, you're Mexican, or you have a citizenship in another country, you have magic papers from some other country and not this one. There can't be two laws. One law, Exodus 12:49. Further on the seventh day, the aliens are protected by the Sabbath law, right? Everyone has to rest in the Old Testament republic, in the old Hebrew confederation. In it you shall do no work, you nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. So even the stranger had the blessing of rest on that day. You shall neither mistreat a stranger nor oppress him, for you are strangers in the land. And many of these passages, there are about 80 of them, remind the readers about their time as slaves in a foreign land, where the country turned against them, right? The Egyptians turned against the very prosperous Israelites. And you shall not oppress the stranger, we read, just in the next chapter. For you know the heart of a stranger, because you were a stranger in the land of Egypt. So notice here, the practicing Christian, your forebears in the faith were strangers in the land. What are you going to say and do about the immigrant at the Walmart? What are you going to say and do about the immigrant in traffic court, right? We have that grave problem in all these traffic courts. You have working people who are using the road freely, apart from the licensing scheme of commercial government. And you think they're wrong. You think they should be licensed. You think they should all go to jail. That's what you think. Well, I'd say if you're a practicing Christian, you better be real careful about saying that and thinking that. In Leviticus, this shall be a statute forever for you. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall afflict your souls and do no work at all, whether a native of your own country or a stranger who dwells among you. So even in special feasts, the stranger was to be taken, that he was to be a part of that. He was to celebrate by rest from all the labor. And in the Old Republic, the gleaning laws, which were the welfare laws, protected the stranger. And here's an example. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape from your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Lord your God. In other words, when you glean, there's another one about further on, which we'll get to. I think about the olive tree or the fruit tree. You can't shake the tree but once, right? And what falls off is yours, but what doesn't fall, the stranger comes to glean him. And if a stranger dwells with you in your land, you shall not mistreat him. Okay, ICE, what about you? Separating families at the border, what about you? A stranger who dwells among you shall be to you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself. Now notice that. It's not just you have to tolerate him. You shall love him as yourself, for you are a stranger in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. When I read that, I can't simply say, well, that's just Old Testament, right? That's just Old Testament law. That's that law God, right? That's the God we don't have anymore. We have a God of grace today, a lot of Christians would say, right? We have a God of grace. We don't believe in the law anymore. There's no law. And here we have a law demanding, ordering in the details, care for the stranger. And again, it's one law. You shall have the same law for the stranger and one from your own country, for I am the Lord. That's Leviticus 24. And what if the stranger becomes poor? Now, you see these families who are very pro-life, right? They love children. They love lovemaking, and they love children. You shall help him. If one of your brethren becomes poor and falls into poverty among you, then you shall help him. Right? You help your brethren, right? You're Anglo-Saxon, you're black man, you're African-American. He falls into poverty, and he's one of your brothers. Well, you help him like a stranger or a sojourner, that he may help with you. So the duty is not just to your friend, but the stranger who's among you. If he falls into poverty, the Israelite, the son in the covenant, right? The daughter in that ancient covenant that God had with his first people, right? His people today are not Israel. There's no Israel anymore. There are really no Jews anymore. That they're just extinct as a people. But there is the church, and there is again the idea of one law. It's phrased differently in Numbers. One ordinance shall be for you for the assembly, and for the stranger. So of the assembly, there's an ordinance, and for the stranger, the same one who dwells with you, an ordinance forever throughout your generations. As you are, so shall the stranger be before the Lord. That's one law and one custom. Again, you don't have a federal law that's written in green type for the immigrant and red type for you. Okay, it doesn't work like that. One law for both. You shall have one law for him who sins unintentionally, for him who is native born among the children of Israel, and for the stranger who dwells among them. So that's called the cities of refuge. The doctrine of the cities of refuge applies to both. You may be an alien, but if you kill someone by mistake, you sin in a way that breaches the public peace, you can flee to the city of refuge. In Deuteronomy, he administers justice for the fatherless and the widow and loves the stranger, giving him food and clothing. And then it goes on, therefore, love the stranger, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt. Do you see the point? Are you getting the drift of this? Now, you, my listener, let's just say you're not a practicing Christian, but you sure know oodles of them, right? There are many, many practicing Christians and people who profess. They make noise about that, is to say they talk up, they discuss Jesus, they discuss goodness, they discuss grace, they discuss forgiveness. There's a command to do this for people who are practicing Christians, and if they don't, there's a judgment. And here is a word about that. Cursed is the one who perverts the justice due the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, and all the people shall say, Amen. So if you are an idolater, right? If you are effectively worshiping Moloch, the god of the state, and it is a kind of a Moloch, it's a god. If you worship that Moloch, then you are going to be prone to falling into this sin, right? And there is a judgment against you. And this is David Toulis, the numbers 800-8949. That's 800-8949. The prophet Jeremiah says, if you do not oppress the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place, or walk after other gods to your hurt. That's just a phrase. I didn't print the whole thing out. Again, there is no right of oppression. You can't have a right to oppress the stranger, but no right to oppress the local man, right? There is no authority, there is no property right in oppression. And I would say ideas are property too. You have no right, my listener, to own the idea that we should accept and agree with any policy. I don't care if it's from a state government, a county government, a deputy, a sheriff, a city, a municipal corporation, or the national power in Washington. No one has the authority to oppress a stranger. And these are strangers, remember, they're not combatants, right? They're not terrorists, they're just working people. And they have children. They are vulnerable at every point. And the federal policy right now is to separate children. There are but the policy and what we do to the stranger, we do to ourselves. And I just want to point out that Mercator.net was a good free market-oriented website. It says that on the average, 747 children a day enter foster care. In other words, government agencies, state and federal, traffic in children to the tune of 747 children per day. And we also are the biggest traffickers of human flesh in our state and federal prison system. 1.7 million people behind bars. And I'd say local economy is not happy with that, right? Local economy and free markets are not happy with that. The people of the land have used oppressions, committed robbery, we read in Ezekiel 22, and mistreated the poor and needy, and they wrongfully oppress a stranger. Are we going to just go along with that? No, you say, well, David, you got a problem here. You're kind of, you got a pinch in your underwear, David. Well, maybe, but what I want for you, my listener, is to have an openness to differences. Okay, what I want for you is that you will accept the idea of diversity. And now I know the globalist left. Okay, I know the progressive left has used diversity for their mantra. Just as they've used the environment for their mantra. Their goal almost always is to increase state control of the marketplace, right? Binding you, taxing you, limiting you more and more, and foreclosing the future. And a lot of times their environmentalist ideology is anti-natalist. It's against birth. It's anti-human population. It's anti-growth. It believes in the fantasy that we are overpopulated. We are hugely underpopulated as a planet. Hugely underpopulated. Our planet is wilderness. It's almost all wilderness. There are a few places here and there where you find human life. The cities and the industrial corridors in the east. But by and large, we are an uninhabited wilderness world. And 7 billion people is just a drop in the bucket. And the capacity of the planet to sustain life, to sustain industry, to create wealth, to create new ideas, to fight pollution. Pollution is simply where something from which there's something that's a waste product from which the energy and the utility has not been yet wrung. Okay, that's all pollution is. Pollution is the unexploited matter of a process that has not concluded the research cycle. Right, until research continues in that particular venue, or that particular type of pollution, then there's going to be that pollution. But once we wring out all the utility, all the energy, if you will, from that product and that thing, there'll be minimal pollution at the end. That's what we want. And so as humankind expands, the war on pollution accelerates. And the last bit of energy is drained from it, and there's no waste, no injury from that product being created. And all around, we have tremendous prospect as the human race, just tremendous prospect, even here in Chattanooga. Chattanooga needs to be a city of 2 million. Okay, let's just say that 175,000 is just hugely underpopulated. It's just way too small. Not enough people. We need more people. And right now, in the history of our continent and the history of our part of the world here in the Bend, in the Tennessee River, we have the option of inviting people who speak Spanish as a native language and who have to have ESL classes at Chattanooga School for Language to speak English, and we want them to be here. And I think we, especially if we are pretending to be Christians of some kind, right? If you say you're a Christian, then the word has a lot to say to you. And my own particular area of work right now, David Toulis here at 92.7, is the traffic statute. And I'm concerned about the abuse of Title 55, the transportation law, which is used primarily against the poor and the disaffected, the ignorant, and minorities and strangers. You go to traffic court in East Ridge, it's every Tuesday, and the people there are almost all in that category. Hardly a one is an actual driver or operator. If you want to know what a driver or operator is, just go to Nuganomics.com today or go to yournews.com. I have a post about how the area of transportation is distinct from travel. Transportation is the for-profit use of the road. So I make mention of some press accounts of the killing of the two deputies, by the way, in Georgia. Those deputies were involved in transportation, so they were involved in a regulable activity. U.S. Express has a kind of a new IPO, and it also is a for-profit use of the road. It is involved in transportation subject to licensure inspection requirements, insurance requirements, and vehicle registration requirements, all of which are used in city court and by police departments statewide against immigrants, against strangers, and against the people such as Tiffany McGuinn and Christina Wright, both who work in the food business here in the Chattanooga area. Single mothers, they happen to be black, and they are under an oppression. Let's see who else. Let's get into just a couple minutes at a time. I have got some important announcements from wonderful sponsors of our radio station. Do stay tuned and support all of our great and wonderful advertisers. Give it to us, Nigger Radio.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio.